Merely recognizing the Creator as the necessary being is insufficient, as some might mistakenly think energy or matter as to what the necessary being refers to. So far, we have proven that a necessary existent does not require a cause, otherwise it will not be necessary. We have also proven that it must be the cause for all possible or contingent existence. Thus, we have already established two attributes of the necessary existent. 1. It doesn't depend on any other existent for its own existence. 2. It serves as the first cause for all possible or contingent existences. From these two attributes, we can establish more qualities of a necessary existent. A necessary being cannot have a starting point or a beginning. If it did, there would be a time when it didn't exist, and something external would have caused it to come to existence. Also, a necessary being cannot have an endpoint. If it did, it would rely on something to sustain its existence. A necessary being cannot depend on anything else to continue existing. Consider this example. The Big Bang Theory at one point did not exist, but it came into existence, signifying a beginning. Then the Big Bang also ceased to exist, indicating an end. Due to its having both a beginning and an end, it cannot qualify as a necessary existence. A necessary existent also cannot be composed of any parts. Parts need each other and depend on each other to exist. Consider atoms, which consist of protons, neutrons, and electrons, all dependent on each other. This illustrates that they can't be necessary existents because they depend on one another. Remember, a necessary existent doesn't depend on anything else. A human being is composed of molecules, and these molecules rely on each other for existence. The human being depends on elements like oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon to exist. A necessary existent is entirely independent and doesn't rely on anything else. A necessary being cannot have a material form, which means it cannot be perceived through our physical senses like touch or sight. A necessary being also cannot be composed of intellectual components. If we attribute intellectual parts to a necessary being, it implies that we have dismantled its essence. Consider this. If I describe a human as a rational animal, I can mentally break down this definition into parts. If I remove the rational part, I no longer have a human. I have altered and essentially destroyed that definition. If I say water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen, I can mentally remove the oxygen component. I no longer have water. I have modified and essentially destroyed that definition. Anything that can be defined must possess a physical component. I cannot dissect a necessary being into parts because if it had parts, it would be interdependent on each other, which is incompatible with the concept of a necessary being. A necessary existent cannot be confined within space because space typically characterizes entities with physical attributes such as a weight or a body. Bodies, which exist in space, inherently depend on their parts. When parts exist, they naturally rely on and interact with each other. In contrast, a necessary existent is entirely independent and self-sustaining, not reliant on any external factors. A necessary existent also cannot be subject to time because time can be divided into intervals. For instance, a span of 5 minutes can be subdivided into 1-minute segments. We can now have a beginning for that 1 minute and an end for that 1 minute. A necessary existent does not have a beginning or an end, and if a necessary being was subject to time, there would have been a time that it did not exist. Based on these definitions, we can now refer to this necessary being as God. Those that envision God as occupying a physical throne, descending from heaven to earth, and being visible to the naked eye, are essentially ascribing to him qualities associated with time and space. This indicates that they have failed to fully grasp true recognition of him.